Hello ladies, gentlemen, welcome back to a brand New World video, and as you know, the Season 10 is releasing in less than 2 weeks. So, for this video, I will be talking about what the smart players are doing right now in order to get ahead of the competition right before the Season 10 releases. Let's start off with, in my opinion, the most important one, the PvP track. Now, as you guys may know, in Season 10, we're getting an actual overhaul on the PvP track situation, so you don't necessarily need to be level 200 PvP track, but what I would recommend you is to have as much as of salt saved up, preferably 100k, and be as close to the checkpoint 3 as possible right before the season releases. If you guys do not know, at checkpoint 3 is where it's most likely, or almost always, the point where you actually get your best items. Now, in the process of getting there, I would also recommend you to make sure you're pre-picking all of your artifacts. Make sure you're already nicely stacked up on your artifacts that you can get from a PvP track, whether you have them away in a stash or in your inventory, doesn't matter. Just try to get as many artifacts out of the way, because otherwise those are going to be overlapping on your checkpoint 3 and, grabbing potentially a very valuable spot. And if you're wondering what is the best way for you to actually stockpile as of salt, it is simply not picking up any of the rewards, and then as you reach the end, you'll be getting even more bonus salt for it. However, some stuff like coins is always worth picking. Maybe even this chili con carne would be worth picking because it's Dex food, but you get the idea. Moving on into the next topic, which is money. This goes in conjunction with the PvP track, at least in my case. You want to be stockpiling way more money than I have right here. So if you can, try to have this, at least in a couple 100k mark. For sure, obviously, I play across multiple accounts, and I've already pre-invested a lot of my money, and I'll talk about that in just a second. But my way of making money, and the way you can also combine it with the PvP track, is, in my opinion, to just play CTF. Now, oftentimes, you will see me just spamming OPRs, right? This is my original way of how I personally make a lot of money. But the problem with OPRs is the fact that you are utilizing your own consumables. The good part about CTF, however, is you're still getting good PvP track experience, but you're not using any of the consumables. So you can use your powerful honing stones, you can use your tier 5 food, and it will be completely free. So that is a great way to make money, or, well, simply gain money without risking or losing any money, right? This is not a money making video, however, but if I were to make money and work on something else season 10 related, it would just be spam PvP activities, play as much CTF and OPRs as possible. Or maybe if you are a part of the company, make sure you do as many company events as possible. Companies are the bread and butter of how most people make money in this game. So if there are invasions, if there are pushes, if there are wars, make sure you're attending them and claim your payouts. Most of the companies do payouts these days, so that would be something I would heavily focus on, especially in the next coming weeks, in order for you to get a little bit extra money before the patch hits. Moving on to the tip that I think is extremely important and not a lot of people are doing, is pre-stacking your Goldcursed epic crates and Goldcursed rare crates. If you guys do not know, these have a very small chance of giving you, at the moment, even best in slotted drops. And the way you get them is over here in the Cutlass keys. You come to the Well of Fortune and you go ahead, you scroll down a little bit, and you get yourself the rare crates and the epic crates. Now, if you are a little bit better than me, you would have a lot of these pre-stacked, but I've been a little bit lazy, I'm not gonna lie, so I don't have that many pre-stacked. But yeah, as I said, I do think they will be pushing these up to 800 gear score, and I do think these are gonna be the great, value for your buck. And whilst you're at it, utilize your Mystic Doubloons, get yourself some Dark Matter, get yourself some gypsums, get yourselves all of these as well. It is just worth doing, okay? Just get ahead. Even proficiency boosters, just get them, and I can talk about more of this in just a little bit, because even the Gathering is getting another update, right? So anyways, I'll be a man of my own word, and I'll get some gypsum orbs here, I'll get some dark materia as well. Obviously, the way you get these doubloons, if you're completely unfamiliar, is you enter the PvP zone, which is right here, down on the Cutlass keys, and you just loot chests, and that's basically it. You loot chests and you escape, and you turn the cursed ones into the regular ones, and then you can use those in order to get the chests every single day. I would heavily recommend you to do this one, even if you skip all of the other tips. My next tip on the list is Chromatic chromatic seals. Currently those cost 5k in the faction store, but there are some other ways of getting them, for example doing your weekly gorgons and stuff like that. I don't think they will make chromatic seals completely useless. I'm gonna be honest, I only have 2 at the moment. You probably could have a lot more than that, but the way it is right now, a lot of the items that you're making always cost 3 chromatic seals. And I don't know exactly how it's gonna be as the gear score pushes up to 800, but having just a couple of these pre-prepared, I think it's honestly worth your time. But again, this is completely up to you. And in the same bucket, I would also say matrixes, right? So chromatic seals and matrixes, whether it's armor matrix, weapon matrix, or jewelry matrix, I would recommend you to maybe have a couple of those as well. I would say 2 armor, 2 weapon, and 2 jewelry matrices just to be like a little bit ahead of the curve. I think it's worth your time, but again, this one is probably more on the bottom of the list that I would recommend you to do, because maybe it's just better to pre-stack your coins and not worry about those at the moment. Moving on to the next tip that I think is also more towards the bottom of the list of the things that I would recommend you to do is pre-questing. So you may be wondering, what does that mean? If we go to the faction vendor real quick, you will be able to see that there are some quests that we can take. Whether it is, you know, Hive of Gorgons quest, as you can see, I have them pre-taken, but I don't have them pre-completed. So what I would recommend you is, if you go ahead and you do your Gorgon run now, you just leave them green and you claim them as soon as the patch hits. And you can do this for a lot of things. You can do this here for the Gorgon. You can do this over here in Brimstone from the Worm Run. For example, I have not claimed my Worm Run yet. You can do the same for every single dungeon in the city. You go into the city, you pre-quest, and you're ready to claim it. Now, you don't need to go overboard with this, because most of the time you will just be completing the main storyline and reach your max level cap anyways. But if you want to be ahead of the time and potentially get some of the biz drops ahead of time, I think it could be worth your time. But this one is on you to consider. I think it's, as I said, more on the bottom of the list. Next one that I think is actually pretty interesting is your trade skills. Now, I do think you should not be 200, but 250 in your trade skills. This account is just my warlogging account. I should have logged on to my other main account, but it's okay, you get the idea. And the most important one here, I would say, is funnily enough, riding. Get your riding to 250 and complete all of your quests, because some people are speculating that the trade skills are gonna be pushed down to 300. So if you want to get ahead of the curve, make sure your trade skills are all in 250s, so you can instantly start grabbing those more expensive resources. And if you're wondering about the riding, obviously exploring the world as fast as possible when it releases is probably in your best interest, so don't be like me, go ahead and do your horse races. It is probably going to be worth your time. Now we're moving on to the one that is potentially more higher on the list of things that are, you know, important to do, and that would be to prepare your 3 houses, but most importantly, your houses full of important trophies. If we very quickly take a look at my houses, they're currently located in, I don't know, Windsward, Everfall, and Brimstone, but the actual trophies that I'm using is Major Loot Luck, Major Wildlife, Major Angry Earth, and the random logging trophy in there as well. So this account used to chop a lot of trees back in the day, but what you will actually see here is this Wildlife and Angry Earth trophy. These are currently used for both Worm and Gorgon. However, yeah, with the new PvE mode releasing, maybe you want to be ahead of the curve and actually have all of your major trophies available. Now, I do perhaps potentially speculate that there could be another major trophy releasing with vampires, perhaps a major vampire combat trophy, right? But we can't possibly know, so what you can do for now is perhaps prepare some of the ones that would resemble vampires. Is this Wildlife? I'm not so sure. Would it be Angry Earth? I'm not so sure, but get some of the major trophies that you're gonna find useful in the new season if you don't have them yet. Or if you don't want to do all of that, just make sure you got 3 houses so you can actually put the future trophies in there. And with those trophies, it is also very important that if you are a gatherer, more of like a chill player that likes to run around, kill some stuff, maybe logging, maybe mining, whatever it is, prepare your base skilling setups. Whether it is like your logging leg gear, do I have it here? Yeah, look at this. Lumberjack hat. This used to be like really good back in the day. Now it's kind of shit potentially, but still, prepare the gear that you want to specify in, right? So for example, if I have a lumberjack trophies, I might put some lumberjack exclusive lug gear in my sets, so I'm able to gather those resources and get more stuff out of it, right? So this is more for those of you who are not like that much into PvP, that much into PvE, you're more of a gatherer. Prepare the sets, they're not too expensive right now. In fact, I do believe they're quite cheap, so focus on one, I would say, and do that. So you have mining, logging, harvesting, skinning, fishing, cooking, arcana. Wait, that's actually kind of like more on the crafting side of things. But anyways, I would say maybe logging, maybe mining. Focus on one that you actually prefer to do. For example, I used to always chop trees between my OPR matches, and I would make very decent money doing so. So, you know, maybe logging will be what I will focus on personally. Jumping a little bit back in time, I want to very quickly touch on the faction tokens. If you guys know, earlier I talked about pre-questing, but my tokens on this account are very bad, right? So I would recommend you to pre-stack more of these sort of tokens. How do you do those? Once again, you're doing the quests, right? And with that kind of in line comes the Azov Salt as well. Make sure you have a decent bit of it. This one's not that important. And if you have a very big excess of it, again, you can consider buying some chromatic seals over here, as I said earlier. And now that we're close to the end of the video, I want to talk about one tip that I think is currently the most important one, and that is to pre-stack your consumables. So what do I mean by that? With the release of the new patch, there is going to be a big influx of people doing PvE, especially, even PvP, right? So how can you prepare in order to be ahead? Get a ton of powerful honing stones. Get a ton of tier 5 food buffs, whether it is roasted new fish that gives you strength, maybe fried albanaja that gives you dex, maybe you just want to go the con route and get a lot of roasted rabbits with seasoned veggies. Pre-stack on the food. Be willing to spend a little bit of money and actually have a decent stack of these. In fact, I see I have 6 desert sunrises. How about I change this and have a little bit more? So there we go, quickly buying 50 of those. And if you want to make money be even more useful, you can just set some buy orders for those. But also what's important here is health potions. Make sure you have a decent bit of those, maybe regen pots, maybe mana pots, depending on your builds, but make sure you have a ton of consumables going into the next season. Every single time there has been a big patch, the consumables suffer the most. And obviously if you're a cooker out there, this is probably your prime time to make a lot of money, right? So consider you know, cooking more of your foods and putting it on the market. Just a thing that always gets overlooked, but is always so useful to have. And I will even make sure to buy, well, let's say even more than what I have right here, right before the Season 10 releases. And lastly, I want to very quickly talk about something that I'm very bad at doing, and that is organizing your storage. So what do I mean by that? With the new gear score increase, things are gonna become very useless. For example, these War Master cloth boots of enchanted light harnessing thrust conditioning are gonna be hot garbage because they're under 700 gear score. Now, if it is above 700 gear score, keep it because you can potentially push it up to 800. So everything that's under 700 gear score and not named is unfortunately insta salvage at this point on. And this, well, under gear score, salvage this. Well, unfortunately, that's under gear score, salvage. All of those items were very bad, but you get the idea. If you have a storage full of items, get rid of the ones that are useless, and that would be the biggest recommendation I would have for you. But again, this one is more on the bottom of the list of things you would want to do. And just like that, we made it till the end of the video. Please do let me know if any of the tips that I mentioned are useful to you, and let me know if I missed some that you will personally be using down in the comments. But if I could recommend the 3 things that I think you should focus on, I do think you should heavily focus on the PvP track being as close to 200 as possible. I do think you should heavily focus on your Azov Salt being as close to 100k as possible. Obviously, you want to have as much money available as possible as well. And as I said earlier, pre-stack your consumables, so as soon as the patch hits, you can instantly go into the PvE action, and you do not need to worry about the market prices fluctuating. Or if you want to be risky with it, you can pre-purchase a lot and then look to merge it right as the patch hits. But I personally will be only buying stuff that I will then end up using. I am not usually the player that manipulates the market, so I just like to buy the items that I will be using myself. As always, thank you so much for your time, and I hope you will be enjoying the Season 10 release in the new world. I'm personally extremely excited for it, and you'll be able to catch me live almost every single day over on the Twitch and YouTube, aside from the time where I will be playing RuneScape. But that's for another time. I'll see you again very soon, and until then, have a beautiful day. Bye-bye.